Not only are there New Yorkers watching the news of a heightened alert for terror threats, the immigration crisis there is of supreme concern, and it appears to have shifted the way Democrats view the issue at our southern border. A new Siena College poll, it finds that 75% of New York Democrats believe the influx of migrants to their state is a problem, a big problem. More than half of Democrats say New Yorkers have done enough for those seeking asylum in our country, and now authorities should work to stop the flow of people crossing into the U.S. Still, 41% of Democrats, that's a significant number, believe the city should continue accepting new arrivals, even as Manhattan is being burdened. White House columnist for The Hill, Niall Stanage, is here. Niall, I really believe that these polls are catching up to reality. It's just not a question that most would think they'd need to ask, especially in a solidly blue state. So what does this tell us? What do these numbers tell us about the upcoming election year?
Well, it's very bad news for President Biden and Democrats, clearly, if their own voters are now so concerned about this migrant issue. Now, it's quite understandable, as you noted, that voters do have those concerns. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, has noted that New York City alone has spent more than $1 billion so far providing services to migrants. Adams projects a cost of $12 billion in the next 3 fiscal years if there isn't a change in policy. And he makes the obvious point that money isn't infinite, so that money that will be spent on the migrant crisis will have to come out of the budget elsewhere, whether that's for police or whether that's for social programs to help native New Yorkers who themselves have perhaps plenty of challenges with poverty or other topics.
Well, I just figure that especially with what's happening with the rise in potential threats or the assumed threats because of the Israel-Gaza conflict, that they're not going to be able to afford to make those cuts that Mayor Adams said would have to happen to law enforcement. I mean, how in the world, and I would think a lot of Democrats are asking this, how in the world can they balance protecting the city during this tense time and also providing for people who have come here for asylum, whom they have no place to put, who they have no money to spend on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, and I think there are some similarities between the two issues, because the crime and policing issue comes after a couple of years where we've actually seen rising crime rates, certainly pertaining to the years of the pandemic. That became a very big issue. In tandem with that, you have had this huge number of migrants arriving in New York City. You're showing some of the footage there of the chaos that has ensued in some places. And how do you balance those two priorities and all the many other priorities that come if you're the mayor trying to run the biggest city in the nation?
Where is the disconnect? I mean, this is not just Democrats in New York. This is Democrats nationwide who are seeing the immigration crisis, rightly called a crisis at the border, an issue of serious concern. You've got Republicans and Democrats going at it back and forth. You should heal this problem. You should solve it. Meanwhile, nobody's doing anything to truly solve it. Mayorkas isn't going to be impeached. What needs to be done so that a real conversation is had and Democrats and Republicans are appeased on this?
You used the word balance a few minutes ago. What there needs to be is a balance between border security on one hand and the funds to clear the backlog that already exists and isn't going anywhere on the other hand. So if you talk to Republicans, they'll say, well, we can't do anything until the border is more secure. But you talk to Democrats and they say, look, one of the big problems here is people who have applied for asylum stay in the country for years because there's such a backlog. Can we have money for more judges, more immigration judges to clear that backlog, or more officials? Republicans have typically said, no, you can't have that with border security, without border security. Democrats saying the opposite. And, of course, the courts have a vote in all of this too, Adrienne. There have been efforts that the Biden administration has made to toughen asylum-seeking procedures that have actually been struck down by the courts. So that's an added wrinkle in the whole thing too.
It feels like a contradiction in terms for the past several years, as if people didn't know that this could become a problem that was too big for America to solve. Real quickly, as we're out of time, do you think that this is making it more likely that we would see a border wall built? Because now we're seeing polls out that show both Democrats and Republicans are for that.
Yes, I think the answer to the question is yes, because those polls have shifted markedly within just a couple of years. Support for a border wall used to be capped around 30%. We're now seeing national polls where it's around 55%.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.